Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. The Langley School is sponsoring this webinar on the primary years, striking a balance between nurture and academics. My name is Elinor Scully, and I am joined by Leslie Hettinger, the director of our primary school. I am the head of school, and we are so grateful that you've joined us today for this webinar about our primary school. Just a quick overview of what we hope to accomplish. In terms of our agenda, we are going to spend some time today telling you a little bit about what the research is telling us about early childhood education. And we're so fortunate now that there has been so much exciting work being done in this area, but we want to share with you some of what we've learned from that research and how that shapes and affects our program. We're going to tell you about our teaching philosophy, and how that philosophy balances play with our curriculum, and how we celebrate childhood at Langley School, and particularly in our primary school. So again, we're thrilled you're joining us, and we hope that this will give you some interesting background information about who we are. Quick snapshot for those of you who are unfamiliar with our school. Langley by design is a preschool through 8th grade school located in McLean, Virginia. We are a day school. About 51% of the students in our school are boys. 51% are girls, 49% are boys. 38% of our families identify their children as being diverse in some way, and we have a 7-to-1 student-teacher ratio. So we pride ourselves on having a lot of resource and teacher support for students, and so when students are in classrooms, they're getting a lot of individualized attention. We also believe passionately that one of the keys to our success is having a very, very strong student-teacher-parent partnership. It has a lot to do with the developmental ages that we serve, and it's a big part of our philosophy in creating the community of learners that we have here. For us, our primary school includes students who are 3 years of age and in our preschool program, students who are in junior kindergarten who are 4, and our kindergartners are 5 years old. One of the things that is really neat about Langley is that we have a very safe, nurturing, almost cozy preschool environment embedded in a larger state-of-the-art preschool through 8th grade school. So when you walk into our primary school, it feels like you're in a primary school. There is laughter and there are young people playing and it has light and color, but you'll also walk into that building just past a state-of-the-art performing arts center with a beautiful theater and sound booth that our primary students get to go in. Right next to the primary school is a brand spanking new middle school building with state-of-the-art science labs and a rooftop classroom where primary school students will go with their teachers to do art projects or just to even have snack on a beautiful sunny warm day up in the treetops. We also pride ourselves that by having these children on a campus with older students, that they get to see bigger kids who are role models to them. Our kindergartners, for instance, are paired with an 8th grader throughout their kindergarten year, and that 8th grade buddy spends time in their classroom reading with them, doing special projects, so that our older kids benefit greatly from interacting with young children, and young children have an opportunity to see where they're headed and to see the cool things that older students are doing. So it's a really special dynamic where we are keeping them at the right stage of development, but also exposing them to resources that you wouldn't find in a traditional preschool by virtue of it being embedded in this larger context. And a lot of those moments of interaction with older students are very organic. And I passionately believe that our older students act with such kindness and compassion because they're used to being around younger children and they see that as a responsibility to be thoughtful and to take care of the community. You'll hear a lot about this if you come visit us. We hope you will. Langley is passionate that one of our most important philosophical tenets is that we are rooted, our educational practices and our community norms are rooted in development. This slide gives you a graphical representation of what we call Langley's arc of development. And the whole point of this graphic is to notice how incredibly steep the arc is when you move from preschool through 8th grade. What we know is that the most important and complex development in a young person's life comes between preschool and age 8. There's tremendous growth that happens in high school, there's growth that happens in college and into young adulthood, but nothing is quite as dynamic and steep as that arc early on. And so by stopping at 8th grade, we have intentionally decided to devote all of our resources and expertise to that steep part of the arc. because laying a foundation of excellence in these early years for children almost all but guarantees their success later in life. And so instead of worrying about having the most sophisticated AP program for high school students, we're trying to understand what exactly does a 4-year-old need and what kind of expertise do we want to bring to bear on those early years. Because there is some research, which I'll get into in a second, that suggests if you lay that foundation properly, the success rates of students academically and socially later in life is really pretty remarkable. One of the things that I would just note about this arc is that we really believe passionately in hiring teachers and specialists who know the nuances of a particular grade level. So for instance, our preschool classrooms are populated with 3-year-olds, and our teachers are experts on 3-year-olds. They know where a 3-year-old is on the first day of school and where a 3-year-old is likely to be in the last day of school. They know that if they're a little bit tearful in the first drop-off day, that's normal, and they know where they should be around December. And we believe that bringing that kind of developmental expertise to bear on every grade level enhances what a student learns and their growth in confidence and sophistication, and that in partnership with parents, we can really help them understand all of those neat aspects of the developmental stages of early childhood by focusing in a very targeted way on separate grade levels with that kind of expertise. And additionally, you heard me mention that I'm sort of passionate about the research. Leslie and I spend a lot of time talking about this in our professional work together because there really has been an explosion of research in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years looking at what is foundationally important about early childhood education. And were I you and trying to decide where to place my young child, I would definitely want to think a little bit about some of these issues. First and foremost, there is research that has come out that suggests that of a preschool program, largely defined by it being developmentally appropriate in the ways that I just mentioned, is a predictor of future academic success, both academically and socially. We know that getting preschool right sets a child on a path for success in school, their orientation to school, and their ability to forge productive social relationships with their peers. We also know that preschools that intentionally attend to building social competence in young children, and they put a program in place that guarantees that the students, by the time they're in kindergarten, have really been worked with by their teachers to develop social competence, show greater success academically in the classroom and more pro-social behaviors later in life. And again, this comes from an exciting survey that was done that followed children longitudinally for over 20 years, the Fast Track Project, that looked at children who exhibited positive social relationships in kindergarten, playing well with others, sharing, being compassionate, being able to work well in groups. Those students had higher achievement in school, they were more successfully engaged in school, and they were more likely to avoid negative social behavior later in life. So, of course, we've known this for a long time. We know that kids that are successful in kindergarten go on to do great things, but now there's data to support that. The other piece of research that we incorporate into our educational philosophy is this notion of play-based learning. We know, and you know this, that it's not good for children to get too much structure, too much sitting, too much intensive work too early on in their life. We want them to have play as a fundamental way they learn about learning. But what we know also is that play-based learning and inquiry actually changes the neural pathways in a young child's brain. And that puts on a path, again, to be able to achieve greater success, whether it's in literacy or mathematics, in problem solving, in the articulation of language and literacy and reading, all of those skills that can come from having a play-based environment, whether it's putting on a play or acting something out or doing something with their hands that keeps them moving, that through that creative play, children are getting the building blocks of intellectual competence that will serve them well later. They're having fun, which is important, and they're oriented to school in positive ways that also set them up for success. And again, we try to build in times for there to be play that is also self-directed by the children, where an adult isn't mediating it and telling them what to do. And we know that's important because it helps kids develop executive function skills. Executive function skills are those skills that we need to be able to be successful in life and in school, to figure out how to organize oneself, to sequence tasks, to be able to write a paper. All of those things require executive function. And we know that giving children unstructured time where they can do imaginative play together or create projects puts the building blocks of executive function in place. And we know that in order for children to be able to pay attention for longer periods of time, they need time to move. You know, you're not going to, if you're sitting in desks or you're spending too much time at a table, you're not getting up that sort of blood flow and that movement, and you're not engaging your whole body in a learning experience, and we know that that's vital to children's learning. So I could go on and on about research, and if you come visit us, I hope we'll have a chance to talk with you in a little more depth about that. But again, we believe passionately that by building a primary school and an entire school that recognizes the essential nature of childhood, how important it is for children to have joy and fun and playful expression in childhood, all in a context that is very specifically thinking about what's going on cognitively and intellectually for children, it puts them on a pathway to find tremendous success later in life. So with that, I'm going to pass the proverbial microphone over here to my colleague Leslie, who has been with us a long time and is a real expert in early childhood education. So she can walk you through some of our specifics of our teaching philosophy and actually try to get you into our classrooms a little bit. Even though this is happening through a laptop, she's going to show you some pictures and tell you what's going on and sort of bring the primary school to life.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. So what I want to share with you here, this slide will show you that at Langley, we really take this long list and we bring it to life. We're interested and we're invested in building lifelong learners. So we allow them to create and imagine and problem solve and really be engaged in authentic experiences. We really want them to play an active role in their learning. We all grew up, I know, learning through the traditional method, and our teachers were really knowledge dispensers versus facilitators. There really was an emphasis on tests and results rather than the understanding of concepts. We listened to our teachers who expected us to memorize material, and we really played a passive role in our own education. Now we know our children can get a wealth of information from the click of a button or the swipe of an iPad. So you may ask us, well, what does inquiry-based learning look like at Langley, and how does this relate to what my child would experience here? In the primary school, we know that learning through inquiry happens during both unstructured and structured activities. So here's the popular sandbox where many of us did get the opportunity to play, and there's really a reason why this is still part of early childhood education today. Because in addition to a sensory experience, students really learn how to problem solve as they build and create, and they're working to make meaning out of their materials. But they also learn how to communicate, cooperate, and compromise with each other. And of course, self-regulation is developed because they need to learn that not everybody can have that yellow bucket or whatever that coveted item might be at the time. Unstructured play is important for cognitive and academic learning. Students are able to build, create, construct, and really think critically. And these are all done while demonstrating skills in sharing, cooperation, and self-regulation. And really, they would just tell you that they were just playing. But they may also be developing skills in aerospace engineering if you can follow the arrows there and see what they created. Research says that dramatic play must be a part of an early childhood education as well. And this is because it allows for vocabulary development, oral expression, opportunities to work through problems. It builds social awareness and allows them to communicate and negotiate roles with each other. And most importantly, it helps them to develop perspective and the point of view of others. Here's such a great example of mathematical development happening during choice time. Without even realizing it, this student is sorting, classifying, and patterning. And these are all part of the foundational elements for analytical thinking, which, as you know, are fundamental to learning algebra, data and graphing, number operations, and geometry and measurement. So now I want to share with you some examples of structured, inquiry-based lessons, and these are intentionally designed by their teachers to create meaningful and authentic experiences. So this picture here, this is a 3-year-old preschool class, and they're learning how to come up with a design for something that is meaningful in its own way. And so here they've been provided with a set of materials to build their own boats with no model, no explicit instructions, just their own ideas, knowledge, and creativity. And then they were challenged to test out their boats and really hypothesize, well, how many marbles is it going to take to sink my boat? So they counted them out each one by one, and they found out how many it actually took to sink their boat. And absolutely feeling like real scientists. Here's an example in junior kindergarten, and this is during their dinosaur unit. And this is that same sandbox, which is now the site of an archaeological dig. Here they are acting as paleontologists, and they are excavating for dinosaurs. And then they're tasked to brush them off, but which allows them to discover the type of dinosaur that they found and really identify its characteristics. So they have to, really figure out, how do I know this is a stegosaurus or a brontosaurus, and what makes that different from a pterodactyl? Then this lesson was taken even further, where they made their own fossils using clay. So they're learning in an authentic way that dinosaur bones can be found not just in skeletal form, but in the form of a fossil. So certainly their teachers could tell them all of the facts around these concepts and this subject, but which way do you think they're really going to learn the material? This is why this is important to us. Next, moving on to kindergarten, I just want to give you an example of when they, during their study of insects, and this is really a great example of inquiry and incorporating student choice. These are lessons that are designed based on what the children are interested in, so the teacher doesn't decide, well, we're going to study ladybugs. They're really allowing for the children to decide what they're interested in, and this allows for experiences that are much more meaningful, they're engaging, and it really helps them to make connections with the world around them. One more example in kindergarten, and this is where they're working with the math specialist. So this is a sorting lesson. And they were allowed to construct their own sorts with buttons. And of course, they started out by sorting them by color, and even maybe by them being dull or shiny. But pretty soon, they realized that they could sort by 2 holes or 4 holes. And eventually, they started to discover that they could sort by multiple attributes, which then led to the discussion of how you can create a Venn diagram. And then they had to think, well, what do I do with the ones that don't belong in this Venn diagram? So clearly, it was taking this math lesson to a whole new level. So we know that children are naturally curious about the world around them, and that inquiry-based instruction gives them opportunities to notice, to wonder, to explore, and question wherever they may be, because we believe in celebrating the wonders of childhood and all of the learning that takes place during these important foundational years. And we hope that you'll join us in this adventure.
Leslie, thank you. It's so fun for me to see these pictures presented on this webinar, because one of the great parts of my job is that I get to wander around the campus and I'll happen upon a group of paleontologists out back doing the excavation. But what parents often say to me over and over again is that this is what comes home to the dinner table conversation or the ride home, because the learning is sticky, if you will. It has meaning beyond just that lesson. And so, if they're at the Smithsonian, or if they're just driving in the car, or they're, out and about, they're applying what they're learning at Langley to their everyday life, and they're asking questions. Sometimes so many questions. Parents say, it's, I love this inquiry-based stuff, but my child asks so many questions, I'm bombarded. But that's what we want. We want them to be excited about learning. So just as a quick summary, why Langley School? We really do have a deep respect for childhood. If you think of, I'm at an age and stage in life now where I think about how quickly time passes, and anyone who is a parent knows how quickly a child grows up. We don't want to rush that in any way, shape, or form. We actually think childhood is one of the most precious and essential stages of life's development. It is full of wonder and excitement. When I used to work in a school that had a high school, and now I work at Langley, where I'm surrounded by young people who are in this stage, and there's so much joy and excitement about learning when you are with young children at this stage of life. So again, our entire curriculum, our entire school is predicated on this idea that this is a very, very essential time of life, and one that needs and deserves, frankly, special attention and to be celebrated. We also hire developmental experts who are going to really help us to create a program at every level: art, music, movement, PE, bus rides, field trips, classroom instruction that is based on where children are developmentally. We know that the arc of development has cognitive and intellectual components as well as social and emotional components, and we want to be nurturing that arc for these young children in very specific ways. We balance academic preparation and engagement with social and emotional development. as I said, the research is clear. You can't have one without the other to be successful in life. And privileging social and emotional learning does not have to come at the cost of academics. They are twin sides of the same coin, and when done well, children leave us and go on to high school and college, independent, thriving, excited learners who know how to take care of themselves and to forge really productive relationships with other people. All of this work takes place in a school that really relishes its community and shares common values. Parents who come to Langley come here because they believe in our school's mission. They want to be involved in a community that really is explicit about the values and the ways we intend to raise young people, and they want partners and other parents who are going to help raise children together. There is no more important work right now in this world than raising kids who are bright, compassionate, and get along well with other people. And the parents that join this community want to be in a community that privileges that, and they want to do it together, and they want to be able to have other children over for sleepovers, and they want to go to birthday parties, and they want to celebrate the successes and accomplishments of all of these young people, because if we do our job well, they will inherit the future and do really good work in the world. And finally, this is a place of joy and intentional instruction. Those lessons that Leslie just showed you sure look like they're a lot of fun. And when you walk into a primary school classroom, they are having a ball. But those lessons are very well constructed. There is theory, and there is purpose, and there is intention. I was in a classroom today where children were working on letter formation, and they were doing it in 3 very different ways. And what I loved about the lesson, it was reinforcing the same underlying skill, but children were doing it in several different ways, which appealed to different learning styles and different capabilities, but also reinforced the skill in a number of different domains. So again, what we do here is thoughtful, it's well designed, it takes a lot of time and a lot of passion on the part of educators, but it gets at creating a joyful learning environment where what we do is very intentional, but it is also geared to kids' developmental needs, and we want them to be loving learning so that school becomes something about which they are passionate. So again, all of this kind of leads us to our mantra, which is that if you get the foundation right, anything and everything is possible. And we really believe that. And we applaud parents who are looking to find the right nursery, primary school environment for their child. And we thank you for taking the time to think about us because, again, this is a really special place. And when I watch our 8th graders at graduation, which is a really special day, because many of them came to us when they were 3, 4, and 5 years old, nervous, some of them shy. Our 8th graders speak at graduation, and they talk about what it has meant to them to be in an environment that has nurtured them from when they were very small to this sort of pivotal moment in their life. And it's that foundation that they talk about as putting them on a path to allow them to do whatever they want for their high school experience. So again, we believe paying such explicit attention to the foundation really does make so much else in life possible and special. So this is just a 30-minute webinar, and so obviously in 30 minutes it's really hard to encapsulate all that makes our school so special. We would invite you to come and visit us. We have an information session on December the 7th at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you can call our admission office and get more information about that event. You can also schedule a tour. You can come in and see this beautiful campus, go up onto the rooftop classroom, pass through our Performing Arts Center, get into a primary school classroom as I did this morning and see all this great stuff in action, and most importantly, hopefully get a chance to meet Leslie. But the whole point of this webinar is to give you some information about our approach, our philosophy, but hopefully entice you to come visit us, because it's one thing to see slides in a PowerPoint, it's another thing to feel the energy and the joy and love of learning that comes when you step on our campus. So we invite you to come and take a look for yourself. One of the things that we always like to do in our webinars is to give parents a chance to ask questions, and we have a mechanism for that. Whereby if you type in a question, I have a little sort of secret screen over here on my computer that will help me figure out what your questions are, and then I will answer them. And then again, you know, if you keep typing them in, we'll stay on the line for about another 6 or so minutes and try to answer as many of them as we can. And if you don't get your questions answered today, of course you can always come in and visit us. So the first question is, social and emotional development are important elements of Langley teaching. How do you pair with parents in this sensitive area so they stay connected with what's being addressed in school? That's a great question. And I'm going to let Leslie say a few things, but first and foremost, I would say one of the things that we do at Langley is a lot of communicating. And that's because when you come to an independent school, one of the things that you're getting is a special kind of communicative relationship with the school. So if there's a discussion in class that's important, the teachers will share that on their learning management page. So there's a way to kind of track what's happening. And if there's an incident on the playground or someone has a bump in their day, you're going to hear about it from the teacher right away. Leslie, what else would you add?
Yeah, I would say it also has a lot to do with the attentiveness that we take in our approach and really getting to know our students. And it's really about a partnership with the parents. So the teachers are so attentive to your students and they know so much of who they are individually that they're constantly having conversations about what your child may be experiencing, what they believe their individual needs are, how parents can partner with us and really help build some consistency between home and school. And so I would just say, again, through a lot of conversations and communication and really just believing that we are partners in raising young children.
That's such a good point. And what I love about our teachers is that they see one of the most important resources in getting to know and support a young learner is their parents, because you're going to see things and hear things that we don't, and vice versa. So the more that we can kind of keep those lines of communication open, the better. So let me just take a look here. There's another question. This one is, 3-year-olds don't always have matured self-regulation or control. Very well said. How do your teachers correct errant behavior when the classroom learning is about a playful environment? That's a great question.
Yeah, I would say it's all about development, what's developmentally appropriate for 3-year-olds, and I guess I go back to first that we really do know your kids, and as Elinor has said, we know that developmental stage. So we know what the behavior of 3-year-olds can be very much like a 3-year-old and sort of know the expectations, but we also know that the classroom needs to be functioning in a way that everybody is learning. And so if we have students who maybe make a misstep or a choice that was sort of not the best choice, then we work with them on an individual basis to help them sort of self-regulate. Maybe it's about finding some ways to soothe themselves. We also assist them in conflict resolution with their peers. So the teachers aren't going to take over and give them take control of a situation that a student may be having with another student. They're going to help give them the words and how to sort of work through an issue with another student. So again, we understand kids where they are, and we just approach it in a developmentally appropriate way. And we have really ways of taking a very positive approach so that students don't feel as if making a misstep or a bad choice is anything to just learn from.
And I just happened to have been in the primary school for most of the morning, and I noticed a student that was having a hard time just sitting still in circle time this morning. And that we have 2 teachers in the classroom, an assistant teacher and a lead teacher, and it was beautiful the way the lead teacher just got up and moved to the side of the room with this child. It was so subtle, I barely noticed it was going on. It was very supportive. It was first thing in the morning. He was having a hard time kind of entering into the morning activity, and the way that he was kind of nudged and guided back into the activity was very supportive, very positive, and subtle. So it wasn't something that everybody was noticing.
Yeah, and I would say we make sure it feels like a safe environment, so they know that if they make a misstep, then they can have a restart. It doesn't have to dictate the rest of their day.
Yeah. So another question, in the interview process for the children, the kids are clearly much younger than the classroom they are experiencing and may not have been in that size group before. How do you account for that for the first, let me just see, my mouse needs to scroll down here, for the first experience in their interview? Or do you expect that they will have already had those first large group experiences before joining Langley?
Yeah, I would say we absolutely understand where these kids are when they're coming in. So again, it's about sort of what developmentally appropriate expectations are for children at a certain age. We know that even 2.5-year-olds when they come in have separation anxiety. 3-year-olds have separation anxiety, and so we work to just help them feel comfortable in the classroom while recognizing that they may be crying as they first transition, but we're going to hold them in our laps. We're going to help redirect them to something that they may be interested in, all in trying to make it a very positive experience for them, and knowing that this might be their first large group experience. And so we're going to think about, what they need at that particular time. Maybe they just need to go to the dramatic play area and work with a teacher individually versus, sitting in a large group of students that maybe know how to do circle time. So we really just try to give them what we need and make sure what they need and make sure they feel comfortable, because that's what they're going to walk away with, is whether this feels like a safe, comfortable environment. So that's our goal.
Yeah, and I think Leslie's so right. We are so experienced in knowing how sort of where a child is and when they first enter an unfamiliar space, when they're they're younger than they're going to be when they actually come to us. And so our admission process is actually designed to be that first welcome outreach, not to make them nervous. And we really, I think our teachers, I watch the teachers who will welcome kids into a classroom. They really know, they know what it's like to be a child.
Yeah, and I also want to mention that our students are really wonderful about this process. They love having visitors come, and the teachers really always tell the class in their morning, morning meeting. They'll say, "Oh, we're going to have a visitor today, and they're going to spend a little time with us." And it's so great to see the kids get excited, and they'll say, "Oh, we can't wait till they come." And then when the students come in, we see our students just greeting them at the door. "Come play with me and do this." So our kids are so inclusive and really just love when other students come visit us, because they're really happy to share what it feels like to them in our classrooms.
Well, I think that is about all the time we have this afternoon for this webinar. But again, heartfelt thanks for taking some time out of your busy day to spend some time with us. And again, there's no substitute for coming to our campus, so please do reach out. We would love to welcome you to Langley. And we thank you again so much for your interest in our school, and hope to see you on campus very soon. Thank you, and have a great day.